What is going on, Chiefs Kingdom? Welcome back to another episode of The Kingdom Says. I am your host, as always, Garrett Williams. I am joined tonight by one of my two usual co-hosts. We've got Mr. Kyle Henning joining us tonight. How we doing, Kyle?
Doing well. Got a day off now on this episode. I know when we talked last Friday, I was barely alive, dragging a little, some might say. Much more energy now. Got some rest. Got to enjoy the latter half of that Chiefs Raiders game yesterday, and now I get to talk to you two fine gentlemen about a bunch of kind of fun stuff that has happened over the last 24-ish hours. So, doing pretty well.
Nice. Good to hear. Glad to hear it. Unfortunately, Mr. Arrowhead Tom is not joining us tonight. Taking his place for this episode is friend of the program, Mr. AtoZ sportsman himself, Charles Goldman. How we doing tonight, Charles?
Doing all right, guys. Doing all right. Just, happy to join you guys again, and happy that we are celebrating the undefeated Kansas City Chiefs football team.
Yeah, still going here, undefeated, seven games later, and still don't got a loss in that column yet. So that's pretty cool. So yeah, life's pretty good in Chiefs Kingdom. Obviously, we're gonna be recapping the Raiders game that just happened. But we want to get some of Charles' thoughts on some developments that have happened, obviously, since the last time that we've talked to him, which was, I believe, preseason. It was the last time we got Charles on here. And since then, a lot has changed on this Chiefs roster. Many injuries, a lot of new faces filling in at key critical spots. The most recent one being Mr. DeAndre Hopkins. Charles, thoughts so far on the Chiefs' undefeated season, which is pretty crazy to say, but the emergence of all these new faces that were very unexpected guys that are going to be new contributors going forward.
Yeah, I mean, even going back to like Kareem Hunt, I don't think anyone really expected that to ever happen. And yet, here he is, becoming a huge leader on this team, a huge part of why they're winning football games right now. It's just a credit to, the coaching staff, but also the personnel department and, their ability to bring in guys who kind of fit the system, right? Kareem, they knew who he was as a football player. Obviously, there were concerns, about his character, which is why they parted ways in the first place. And the fact that they felt that he had done enough off the field to, kind of rectify and make up for the fact that, he was involved in something that was not good, right? So I think that was an interesting development, something really unique. And with all the wide receiver injuries, obviously, Hollywood Brown goes down before the season even starts. Rashee Rice, your leading receiver, the guy who's really the focal point of your offense, he goes down with injury. Isaiah Pacheco goes down with injury. All of a sudden, all of these just stalwart pieces, people you were relying on to be there for Patrick Mahomes and for the offense, they're gone. So bringing in someone like DeAndre Hopkins, I think it kind of it settles the ship a little bit. I think that you're in a situation where you need kind of that veteran leadership. You need a guy who knows how to get open versus man coverage. You need a guy who knows how to leverage certain looks, whether it's zone or man, or the different things that he can do within the scheme, but also improvising alongside Mahomes and Kelsey and the rest of the gang. I think that is what Hop really brings to the table for this team. And I think he's going to help some of these young guys grow a little bit more in their ability to, do different things and learn and see the field differently. Because as Justin Reed kind of said about, D-Hop, his former teammate, I think it was the Kansas City Star. They had a story where Justin Reed was like, DeAndre Hopkins taught me something in the 1 year that I played with him in Houston. And I still, every time I go on the field and I see that happen, I think about it. I remember it. Like, it has stuck with me this whole time. And I think you're going to see a lot of that, not just, guys on the defensive side of the ball, right? But but also the receivers in that room. I think it's going to be huge for a guy like Xavier Worthy, who is already joking and saying, "Hey, now you're Unc because Juju Smith-Schuster, you're older than Juju." So right, so now he's the old head in the room that he gets to lean on. And we're already seeing just in a single game how much he can add to this team. I mean, he picked up 2 first downs for the Chiefs in that game against the Raiders after having, one practice and a fast Friday. Like fast Friday, you can't even call that a practice, man. Like for the Chiefs, it is quick. It's a glorified walkthrough. And they're trying to get through as much as they can, as quick as they can. And it's all about tempo and pace. So, for him to go through those 2 practice sessions, come in and play about 30% of the offensive snaps against the Raiders, man, I think that's huge. I think we're going to see him double those snaps in this next game. And man, I'm just excited to see what he can do once, Pat really knows how to trust him, how to find him on the field.
I think you bring up through both of those players you just discussed. I think one of the things, and I want to make sure I saw this correctly. I swear I saw quotes today, and I thought I saw it on the game. Kareem Hunt was a captain yesterday, was he not?
Yeah, he was a captain. He was team captain, which I mean, I tend to think that the team captain situation for the Chiefs, they rotate them every week, right?
They do, yeah.
Like it's not it's not the same as other teams, right? They don't just pick like 5 guys for the whole season, right? They pick guys specifically for specific games. And they pick Kareem for a rivalry game. I think that aspect of it, I think, is big. I wouldn't be surprised if he's here for a season, right? We got him signed for a season. I wouldn't be surprised if he comes back for future years.
Right, yeah.
I really wouldn't be surprised if he signs a couple 1 years, goes the Jerick McKinnon route, where he's just signing 1-year deals with this team every year and is like the number 2 guy, reinforcing what they got and Pop and some of these other undrafted guys. I don't think they're gonna invest a whole lot of money at that position, but man, has he been huge.
Yeah, it's definitely been.
So I thought that was a
very
telling,
surreal emergence of these guys. Go ahead, Kyle.
I thought that was pretty telling that they did, like you mentioned, choose it for a rivalry game, but also just they do rotate it, but not everybody on that roster ends up with that. And for them to, especially in that room with some of the other guys that are in that room, him to step in and be that kind of leadership, that kind of, hey, a guy that's been around the league, whatever happened here happened the first time, but everything that's taken place since then and what he's shown since returning and the way he's handled his business since being back in this building, that speaks a lot to what they thought. And I think it goes back to they thought that for a while. It was just a matter of, was the fit going to work? When I say they, not necessarily Clark, but Andy and co, the wedding conversations, the Patrick stuff, all of those things seem to have led to, they thought he was a pretty good leader overall in the long term. And I think that kind of transitions exactly into the same type of player that DeAndre Hopkins is. You brought it up. Justin Reed's brought it up. I can't remember who I was listening to, but they had one of the Tennessee beat writers on. I think it was Locked On with Ryan Tracy and Chris Clark. They had one of the Tennessee guys on that covers him, and he was like, they were like, yeah, he works with the young wide receiver room, is the guy, happy to help, happy to teach, which is not always the case with veterans, especially in the wide receiver position. In some instances, not always the most happy to impart knowledge. So just for those 2 guys and the way for those things to come in and do things and the way that they handle themselves. And you mentioned D-Hop. I also heard it said that he's basically been in the building every day, all day since he got there, early, out way late, in the meeting room, in the film, in the stuff like that.
I mean, you might as well be in there.
That's what you want when you bring in
random apartment that they've set you up in.
I was basically told he didn't leave.
Apartment,
he
sure.
didn't,
but
I don't even know. He might have just brought his stuff in. So even one of the spare offices. I mean,
he didn't leave.
Whatever.
Thursday, the day he got there, he didn't leave. Like he just stayed through Friday.
Yeah, I'm sure they got a couple fold-out cots or something, futons that he could have easily crashed on.
They've probably got some stuff in those facilities they can sleep on. So, I just for that to be the way that they come in and handle things, and you talked about it with D-Hop early on in that game and what he did, finding holes in the zone, creating space for Travis, creating space on his own for himself. He can still do all kinds of things.
Yeah,
so.
drawing eyes. I mean, drawing red zone eyes. Like that was a big thing in that Travis Kelce touchdown. Like they used D-Hop and that he got some good looks and a lot of attention. You know, so that's just going forward. You know, having that veteran, proven guy that's going to draw more attention off of Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy. Obviously, that's what you had in Rashee Rice, and now you don't have that anymore. So. Huge that you get D-Hop. It was really fun to see him. It's pretty funny. Like Charles mentioned, the 2 catches were both for first downs, which is going to be a big thing, I think. I think they're going to definitely going forward. I mean, early on especially, but going forward, he's going to be a big third down threat, a big goal line threat. Just a really crucial guy. Yeah,
Travis's touchdown. If you watch DeAndre at the top of the screen on that route, he might be more open than Travis is when Patrick throws that football.
Yeah, so it was really good to see. Also, very interesting that the pass that Patrick Mahomes broke the 30,000 yard record with was to DeAndre Hopkins. So that was kind of cool. Quickest player in NFL history to reach that feat, which is just awesome in itself. It's that 103 games, I believe.
Yeah, I think he beat Stafford by 6 games. Who was at 109? Who was second, right?
I believe Stafford's at 109. So kind of a underappreciated record that Pat continues to break. Just keeps on breaking all these records, and it's just you wouldn't even think about it anymore. There's just normal things, especially when it's going. We're 7-0 still. It's like that record is very far away in most people's minds, but it's still a huge accomplishment nonetheless. So.
But what he had to say about it though, right? He spoke about his coaches, his teammates, and he said we still got a lot of work to do. Like he didn't even take a moment to really take it in. He immediately knew that this was not something that reflected himself, but his teammates, his coaches, the people around him. I mean, it just it's reflective to the way this team's playing football right now, and just all around, right? It's just the complete team game right now. When one area bends, the other area snaps right back.
Exactly.
It's just really impressive.
Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit. It's like Pat is so far beyond just like normal stats now. It's like he might have statistically be on like one of the worst seasons that he's had, and yet I don't think anyone with a brain is really saying that he's playing bad football or counting him out in the slightest. It's like we're at a stage now where it's wins. It's not really the pretty stats and putting up 40 points on guys. It's like just getting the wins and doing the little things right is super incredible. So really impressive to see how this offense has been flowing. Another obviously huge key of the offensive performance on Sunday versus the Raiders on National Tight End Day was Mr. Travis Kelce. We already alluded to him getting his first touchdown of the season, which is kind of weird to say, but finally found the end zone. Mr. Travis Kelce, 10 catches on 90 yards. So really big day from him, which was probably to be expected. I mean, Travis Kelce also, I believe, surpassed the milestone for most catches against the Raiders, passing Tony Gonzalez in that game. So Travis always goes off versus the Raiders. It was bound to happen one of these games that he was going to have a really, really big performance. And of course it happens on National Tight End Day, which is a crazy manufactured holiday that just somehow like every single tight end basically scored. So that was kind of a crazy day, but
well, I think there was a bunch of like Taylor Swift voodoo happening as well.
There's something. Yeah. There was some magic in the air.
She did like a touchdown celebration at one of her Eras Tour shows, like in the show.
Oh, okay.
It's like the 13th straight game that the Chiefs have won. Right.
It is.
Like there are all these like little like all these
See,
little
this is the investigative reporting that we need, Charles. All right. This is the things that we get you on here for.
Taylor's show last night was in New Orleans.
Yeah. her show happening in New Orleans. Super
I have
Bowl
a friend who was at that show,
happening in
so
New
I know
Orleans.
where it was.
Yep. Absolutely. There's a lot of strange stuff going on here. I mean, it's Halloween a couple days away. She may be an actual witch. That's what I'm saying.
In a good way. Of course. Swifties don't
Yes.
It's a good way. You know, it's like
don't
it's like
no.
that, Disney
These are all compliments, Swifties. No, no attacks, please.
So yeah, great to see.
I think
Kelsey
it
have a
highlights
big day.
though. Well, I think it. Look, he's been doing the other stuff all year. He's been doing a lot more blocking. He's been doing a lot more of what we just talked about with them not really caring about how they win or what it looks like, just caring about winning. And they were running the ball in all the other games really well at a crazy clip, like 4 or 5 yards a carry without much difficulty. They didn't run the ball so hot this game. The Raiders actually played a pretty good game on the run defense.
Yeah.
Kareem it was 21 carries for 59 yards. Was not his best day, but that's largely because there wasn't a whole lot, as Andy said, wasn't a lot of room in there. But when it comes to the National Tight End Day, which is, it's basically Travis's holiday at this point. I know it's the tight end holiday, but he
Travis
does this every year on National Tight End Day. Him and George both go bananas on National Tight End Day and just have an absolute ball, and both did. I'm not really surprised that we're now getting into the middle to the later and approaching the later half, and it's now late October, and now you're starting to see, Patrick threw for 262 and 2, and Travis had 10 for 90 and a touchdown, and DeAndre got a couple of targets and caught both of them and got his 30 yards, and that's going to continue to increase and go up, as Charles already mentioned. Like, this team is always about, at this point, building up and gearing up for what they want to actually play for, what they're here for now, which is not personal awards like you guys mentioned with his yardage or with the 52 touchdowns that him and Travis have together now, or any of that other stuff. They're about wins and rings, and they don't really care about much else, especially this year. On a probably different level than anything else, because Patrick's been very open about, hey, I want to be in the conversation and be considered the best to ever do this, and to do that I have to get rings, because the guy that everybody considers the best has a bunch of them. He knows he has to try to do something that Tom didn't do. Well, Tom never three-peated, and that's the goal this year. And it's not just him that feels that way, because we'll get to it later in the show. They're in all the way.
They're all in. Oh yeah.
With the D-Hop trade, they went ahead and Charles, you can make sure I got the math right here, but the Juwan Taylor restructure cleared up $5.2 million in cap, is what reports I kept seeing.
After the D-Hop trade and after the Juwan Taylor restructure, I had the Chiefs around 6.4 to 9 million, depending on a couple of different factors. I think they're probably closer to the 6.4, which now with their latest move, that is probably going to be a little bit lower. Still a little bit of room if they need to go out and sign somebody, but they're right now. I mean, they're at a manageable spot.
Yeah, so there's definitely some room to do a couple more things, which we'll talk about later. But
that's what they're all in about. This is what they care about. Yeah. This is the stuff, and they also cared about the puppet and the Christmas Day game, and they made sure they went out and took care of what they needed to take care of.
Yeah, unfortunately, the game really wasn't. I don't think the offense was rolling enough early on that they really could whip out some of those little trick plays and those cute things. We'll see them. We'll probably see next meetup a couple more of those come out. But when the offense isn't exactly, just treading through them, you have to play a little more normal. But still had like 2-3 touchdowns on the day. Really productive offensive performance. Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy. He had an up and down day. Didn't have the greatest day as a pro so far. Had a couple drops. Really there's one drop, and and a couple other plays that he just got a little bit out muscled on. That'll happen. But he did
I
have
don't
a
even know
bounce
that it
back
was a
touchdown
drop.
at
It looked
the
like he
end.
got it knocked
So,
out. That you talking about
yeah,
the
there
high
was
point
one
one that
where
was
it
on the
was
sideline?
it really was a catch and then fumble, but they ruled it a drop.
Oh, you're talking about that one. I'm talking about the one on third down on the sideline where looked like the ball was about a half a tick late. If that ball's there as it should be, he's open and doesn't get that knocked away on that third down
Yeah, it was
in
also
our own end.
it was a little up there on one of those passes. He had to really jump for. He's not the tallest guy in the world, so.
How about the one catch that he had where he got kind of like tangled up with the defender and like defied gravity or like broke the
Yeah.
matrix or something?
Yeah.
The one the Chiefs posted
wild.
today where I've watched it
Yeah.
probably 1,000 times and I still can't quite figure out what caused him to like bounce off the turf like a bouncy ball. It was very
I little
strange.
shades of Tyreek there. Tyreek would always kind of bounce off the turf and just kind of contort his body in midair like that. You know, that was kind of Tyreek's thing. So
That was remarkable.
yeah. So overall, I mean, the offense had a pretty good day. It wasn't anything crazy, but
Do we want to talk
they
about the
still
one
had
glaring thing that seems to be an issue on this offense still?
Are you talking about the silly interception? Is that what you're?
No,
No,
I'm
crazy.
talking about the fact that they don't have a tackle at left tackle right now still.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that too. Yeah.
I thought, if Jawan Taylor plays like he played yesterday, I think that it's going to be okay.
Kyle does
Wanya
not like our left tackle, Charles. Just so you know.
Wanya Morris
I
is
don't
what he is.
dislike him. I just don't think he should be playing over Kingsley when he hasn't played better and they actually gave Wanya help and didn't really give Kingsley any. I just don't understand the thought process. That's my issue, and it has been.
Yeah, I don't think they set Kingsley up for success, and I think that the key is they don't want to. I don't think they want to hurt his confidence any more than they already have, right? So I think they second guessed themselves a little bit there. Decided to go back to Wanye because they trusted him. They know that he could get them through games. And, that's kind of just what they need right now is a guy who can get him through. And, look, if he's going to have 3 holding penalties against a Max Crosby when he plays a Max Crosby, it's going to be what it's going to be. The hope is that he's not going to see Max Crosby lining up across from him every week, right? He's going to see some good pass rushers because they exist in this league. But he's had some decent reps, for throughout this kind of period. It's just a matter of stacking some good weeks, and I think there's going to be a week. Maybe it's not this next one. Maybe it's week 10 or week 11 where something just clicks for him, and it's just going to keep building and building. But I don't get the sense that the Chiefs are seeing the left tackle situation is dire right now. I've asked some people like, hey, is Donovan Smith an option? Bakhtiari? Like, are you guys looking at veterans? And these people are in the know and they tell me, nah, not really. So unless there's an injury there, I don't think they're going to add at that spot. I'd be a little bit surprised. So it's just one of those spots where I guess they're going to be okay with the growing pains, whether it's Wanye out there or Kingsley.
So I'm not really a proponent of them bringing in a left tackle. I never really thought that would be the case, specifically for a multitude of reasons. 1 being familiarity with system, 2 being Patrick trust, 3 being they have 2 guys in the building that they clearly feel at least one of them should be competent. The thing that concerns me is not only did Wanye struggle with Max, he also struggled with Divine Diablo, who is not Max Crosby. One of those holding penalties was on Divine, not on Max. And
he's
also
an athletic guy,
Yeah, I know. I
big
hear you,
safety that got converted to
yanked,
linebacker.
Yeah, he's a dog.
They yanked Kingsley for struggling with Trey Hendrickson. With basically the same thing we just watched Wanye have an absolute meltdown with on that drive. 3 holding penalties, could not get out of his own way, almost caused a safety because one of them was dang near in the end zone. And right before that, like the series before that, Patrick's ankle gets hurt because he got beat around the top clean again and gets rolled up on a little. the thing that I don't understand, and the reason that I've said what I have about Wanye at the left tackle spot is, if you were going to hold Kingsley to that leash, why is Wanye got a longer leash when he's struggled? Not just this year, but he had moments like this a little bit at points in time last year where he was learned. Now he was thrust into it because of Donovan Smith.
When you pull Kingsley, you can't just keep flip flopping. You got to stick with one or the other, right? And when they made the decision to pull Kingsley, that was the decision. So it unfortunately it's like, and it is what it is situation. It's not a great situation. It's probably the weakest position on the Chiefs roster right now, which is frustrating because they've tried very hard to fix this.
I think mostly our biggest concern was just the initial changing of the guard. And, there's definitely expectations that there would be growing pains with either option this season. I think personally, we'd like to see the guy who might potentially be the future at left tackle have those growing pains and get the treatment that Wanye's gotten, where he's actually getting help and having a little bit of assistance, and let him suffer through those growing pains like that. Whereas Wanye might not be the long-term answer, but who knows? At the end of the day, like Charles just said, they've kind of made their decision, and it does seem like Andy's pretty set on sticking with that unless something very dire changes or an injury. I think it probably is Wanye's job the rest of the year, because at a certain point, like Charles was alluding to, it'll hopefully click, and hopefully they'll look a lot more cohesive as a unit when you have the same starting five throughout the whole year. So that's something to at least try to look forward to. And
let's hypothetical it for a second, fellas. Let's just talk this through. Let's say that Wanye has another game like this. He's just got like 5 holding calls in a row. He's just getting beat like a drum. And they're like, okay, we got to do something. We put Kingsley in there. Maybe he does slightly better, but he's still getting beat. Well, what other options do they have after that? You can go out and sign a guy, or you can throw Ethan Driscoll in there and hope that you get a different result.
Maybe.
Those are probably your options if that happens. Or you go back to Kingsley, and maybe he has sat on the bench long enough where he's comes out and playing like prime Tyron Smith. You never know.
I guess my question on that is, and the reason that I've had such confusion and frustration, frankly, with the way that they did handle this initially, is why have you ever seen an offensive lineman that needs snaps get better by watching snaps?
No.
From the sideline?
No.
If he needed game reps before the season started, which we all said he did, everybody that talked about him, he needs reps. He needs NFL reps.
Should have played him more in that first preseason game where he only had 5 snaps or whatever.
So like, if that was your whole thing, and then you pull him after 2 games, especially when one of them is freaking Trey Hendrickson, who is pretty dang good too at that edge position, one of the top pass rushers in the NFL. He's not top 3 or anything, but top 7 to 10 pass rusher in the league.
This year he's probably top 3, to be honest.
And
like he's pretty
there's
that. Top 5. It's pretty good.
So
but I agree with you. I think the way they handled it probably was not ideal. It was probably not the way they should have gone about it. I think sticking with Kingsley probably for the long term would have been better. But remember, the goals right now aren't about.
I know.
About
That's
the
only
term.
reason I'm dealing.
It's about winning.
Yeah.
It's about winning these football games and making sure that this team is poised to three-peat.
And they're winning, so I can't complain too much.
So
you don't get him hurt.
I think they're going to be all right there. I really do. It's going to be a little hairy at times, but I think they'll be okay.
Okay, transitioning over to the other side of the ball for the Chiefs that looked a lot better and it was a lot more fun to watch, which it always is this year. It seems like defense is always just
2 years.
Yeah, basically the past 2 years actually. The defense is always just incredibly fun to watch, and they somehow outdo themselves each and every week, holding the Raiders to 1.6 yards per carry on the ground. Early on in the game, like the first quarter and a half, the Raiders had a little bit of a passing offense going. Jacoby Myers is a sneaky guy that always just seems to have really good games against the Chiefs. especially with Devontae Adams not being there anymore. He was bound to have a pretty good game. Brock Bowers, the really good rookie tight end, he had a good little showing, which tight ends this year have been a mismatch for us. So that was kind of to be expected. But ultimately,
and he's really good.
After
Brock
halftime,
is really good.
Yeah, Brock is really that's the
I like
I
hope, Brock coming out. I know the Chiefs liked him too.
Yeah, I really hope the Raiders fumble that one away. And
every
I thought he
year,
was bigger
somewhere else.
So every year,
he looked pretty small versus Kelsey. Yeah,
every year Patrick Mahomes has a bunch of draft eligible pass catchers. It seems out to Texas to throw with him, and one that was out there this last year that didn't really get out there. That wasn't really widely reported. I think there were like some blurry photos, and people were like, "Is that Brock Bowers?" But yeah, it was him. He was out there. I know they really liked him, and had he fallen in the draft, he would have been someone who was in consideration. And look, I mean, he's going to be a guy that the Chiefs shut him down a little bit. After the first quarter, they definitely figured something out with him. But this is a guy who's going to be a pain in our butts in Kansas City for a long time.
Yeah, that's all I was saying. Hopefully the Raiders somehow fumble this away. He decides to leave after 4 years, and they have Michael Mayer over there too, who was even active. Yeah, hopefully Mark Davis and them they mess that up and he goes somewhere else after a couple years, because he could very well have a Travis Kelce-esque career in Las Vegas and be a real thorn in the side of the Chiefs for a long time to come. So it makes sense why they're very
the Ravens
impressed by him.
Brock Bowers.
Yeah, ask anyone who's gonna. I'm guessing he's gonna do that to a lot of folks this season. But after halftime in that second half, really the defense kind of figured it out. The pass rush heated up a lot more. The blitzes, Spags started dialing some things up versus Gardner Minshew there. So ultimately, defense, pretty impressed by them. I don't know your guys' whole overall thoughts, Charles, how you thought the defense did, especially on that defensive line, which I think is a big, especially with the newest addition that we'll talk about, but a big point that's might get some change to come soon.
Yeah, I think that the defense has really been just a reflection of Spags, right? Like just versatile, aggressive, just very, very, very good defense, man. Just I'm quite impressed with what they've been able to accomplish this year, and they're missing some people on that side of the ball too. Jalen Watson wasn't playing. Mike Dana is not playing. They don't have Charles Omenihu back. BJ Thompson's still on the NFI. Like they're missing some
concussed.
Najee got concussed during the game. They're missing some pieces at some key positions, and they were still able to do what they did. The run defense, just phenomenal. I mean, the Raiders don't have a great run game, but like holding a team to like 1.6 yards per carry.
1.6 yards per carry, yeah.
They took their lunch money, and like that they bullied them when it came to the running game. Forced Gardner Minshew to beat them through the air, which honestly he kind of was at times, right? But when they got to him, 5 sacks. The pressure was there. A whole bunch of guys got involved in that regard too. I mean, Leo Chenal, Mike Pinnell. That's a guy you don't see getting sacks too often, but he got a pretty important one there. It's just this defense can really, really step up in the big moments, and I feel like Spags has coached them to be able to do that. Man, I was really impressed with Drew Tranquil. He played his best game of the season. He was just playing lights out, hair on fire, flying around.
Yeah.
He was having a really, really good game, which they needed because he has not played the best this season early on. So they needed that game from him, and I just I like what they've got going on right now. But this new addition, man, I think it's going to unlock some different things, allow them to do some new things. That Spags, man, it's going to be fun to watch.
So the first quarter, I tweeted this. The first 20 minutes, this defense was really frustrating. Because it just felt like they didn't really think the Raiders' offense was good enough to even bother them if they kind of didn't really play that hard, and they found out that they did actually have to try a little bit at points. It looked like they were a little sleepy in that first quarter and a half. I don't know, but to come out, go ahead.
I feel like it. I feel like it was intentional. I feel like they kind of let them like they wanted to see what they were going to do, like see where they were going to have like success, where their go-tos were going to be, and they just adjusted immediately on the fly and just took it all away.
Do you think they do that with several of the the Chiefs traditionally, a team will score in the first 2 or 3 drives, especially this season, and then after it there's nothing like at all.
They have feeling out drives is what I like to call them, and the Chiefs defensive coaching staff, ouch, bang my elbow here.
Not sound like it felt good. Good.
Yeah, no, just like smacked it right here on the table. Funny bone.
Not nice.
Anyhow, Spags and the defensive coach is really good at like rallying the guys on the sideline and adjusting in game, finding those coaching points and kind of getting it through to the guys that, hey, this is what we need to do to make this change, to change this leverage, or cover this guy a different way, or line up someone zone, or have a certain rotation in the coverage. They figure these things out on the sideline, on the tablets, and get that kind of fixed. If they are in the middle of their quote unquote feeling out drive and they manage to get a stop, great. They're feeling really good, right? If they don't, they're not worrying, they're not panicking. They immediately just go to work, which I love. It's a great mentality to have. They know they're playing for a full 4 quarters, and that, that first drive, if it doesn't go their way, that they're going to have another chance right after. So,
yeah,
that has been the theme.
I want to highlight a couple things about this defense. We talked about the 1.6 yards rushing. That's if you include everybody that wears a Raiders jersey. They held them to 1.6 yards on the ground. The running backs, Alexander Madison had 14 carries for 15 yards for a 1.1 yards per carry. Amir Abdullah, one of their other running backs, had 1 carry for 2 yards. The third running back on that roster, Zamir White, had 2 carries for -1 yard. That's the running backs. Their best runs were from a wide receiver in Trey Tucker for 1 for 7. Gardner Minshew had 2 carries for 6 yards and a fumble on the strip sack fumble that took place from Mike Pennell that we talked about. And DJ Turner had 1 carry for 4 yards. Their running backs averaged a yard. Yard.
As much as the Raiders as a team need to figure out the quarterback situation, because Gardner Minshew, Aiden O'Connell ain't it. They now have to figure out the running back situation, the wide receiver situation. Like they do not have their offense is not set up to be good.
I can't believe that they let Josh Jacobs walk. I mean, like, Josh Jacobs was their whole offense basically for the past few years. Like, you didn't have to worry about a run game. Josh Jacobs, even on his worst games, would get going. It's like they let that
more
slide.
The lone piece that they have is the tight end right now. And look, I mean, it's possible for them to find a quarterback, running back, wide receiver all in this next draft, but my goodness.
Yeah.
They got some work. They got some work to do.
I also wanted to I read this stat today from Josh Chavis over on Twitter. I don't know if he writes for anybody right now or does anything. He's a creative director at Para. But he put out a tweet. If the Chiefs hold the Bucs to under 28 points next week, they will tie the 05 to 07 Ravens. If anybody's not familiar, that's like one of the best defenses of all time.
Ray Lewis, Ed
yeah. With 29 straight games under 28 points.
Yeah, that's a pretty good streak that's going so far. Yeah.
And they're pretty well set up for that, because the Bucs aren't going to have Mike Evans, and they're not going to have Chris Godwin either.
That Chris Godwin injury was gross.
Bucky Irvin is a dog, but other than that, yeah.
This defense is as good as it gets right now in the league. They are the best unit, I think, especially front seven in the league, and they just got better. And like we've alluded to like 6 times, we're going to talk more about that shortly. The ability for Mike Dana was living, or not. Sorry, Mike Dana. Sorry, I want Mike Dana back badly to make this even stronger. But
You're right.
Mike Pinnell, see too many
Mhm.
Mikes, and Derek Nottie this year. Derek Nottie did not have a great year last year or even 2 years ago. He's had some intermittent things. He got banged up or whatnot. We haven't talked about it, but that goal line stand after the interception on a fluky tip ball interception where they went and decided to take pictures in the end zone again because people just don't learn about taking pictures
Just
in the
don't
end
learn.
zone when they get
They just
turnovers
don't
off
learn.
Patrick. They got 0 points off of that interception because that defense said no.
Man, that was quite the stand. Yeah, that
Yeah.
4-down stand
That
in the 5-yard line.
The
Crazy.
third down play, Derek Nottie is 3 yards in the backfield off the snap. The guy that was supposedly blocking him looked like he was on roller skates and went straight backwards. There's a reason that play got strung out. It's because the runner had to run around the guy that was supposedly blocking Derek Nottie all the way into the backfield.
One
and then
thing
he gets blown up.
One thing I love about I gotta say this because this is a Chris Jones thing. Like the reason Nadi was able to do that is because of Chris Jones. Because Chris, he does this amazing thing where like he spends all game setting guys up for one moment, and everyone on that defensive line has learned this strategy and they've kind of adapted it themselves. And I guarantee you, Derek Nottie was setting that guy up for that moment, and he took full advantage. Full advantage. I will say the other beautiful thing on that goal line stand, the tackle for loss from Drew Tranquil. That man was not going to be denied. He was watching the ball the whole time, and just he saw the guy. I think it was a wide receiver, whoever they had in to like block him or chip him, and he just ran straight by him.
Yeah,
just straight by him to blow that play up behind the line of scrimmage. Just beautiful.
So your comment about how Chris handles what he does, it's one of the reasons when he chooses to, he can win automatically. And I don't think that gets enough credit for, not only is he a alien when it comes to his physical gifts,
he's a gamer,
but
man.
He can win instantly because he's smarter than you too. And he spent the whole day. First of all, he knows everything about you, where you're strong, where you're weak. But he knows exactly what he needs to do to beat you instantly if he has to beat you instantly. And we've seen it now. You're seeing it a lot more this year with Tershawn Wharton as he's progressed. Turk looks, I know it's contract year. They're always undefeated. We love you. Rest in peace, Therese. Missed it. Miss you, buddy. That was his saying for a long time.
Yeah.
Turk is developed into everything I hoped he would after his rookie year and after that injury. He came back all the way, and you're seeing now the fruits of spending much time next to Chris Jones and learning, hey, it's a pass rush with a plan. You hear it a lot more for edges than you do with interior guys, but that's what they're doing, and they're all doing it, to Charles's point. So it just allows that defensive line and the ability of the other part we've talked about on this show for 3 years now, Garrett? Spags' ability to line up whoever, wherever, however he so chooses. You can line up Leo Chenal and Felix inside at D tackle and let.
Yeah, I believe first play of the game, Leo Chenal was lined up at D end. Like they'll line guys up wherever.
Do those things because you have the athletes, but you also have the abilities, and it's just watching him finally get a defense that he's wanted for years, get it built to the way he wants, have the personnel he wants. You're watching him turn it loose, and this is what it's doing.
Yeah. Speaking of the personnel he wants, though.
Yeah, he is getting the personnel he wants.
Let's do it, guys.
That he doesn't expect. So the defensive line, obviously, like we just alluded to, really good. We did mention there have been a couple absent guys. Mike Dana's been out a few games. Charles Omenihu still hasn't made his appearance. Cam Thomas has only got like 6 defensive snaps total this year so far. So obviously he wasn't as far along maybe as they might have liked. So
I think his snaps have been good. I think he's more of a long-term type of play than
definitely more of a project guy who fits the Spags mold of a defensive end. Breaking news today, Monday, after the game.
When the sun was up, no less.
Yeah, exactly. They actually didn't do something when the sky was dark still. The Chiefs traded for Patriots pass rusher, Mr. Joshua Uche. That's how you say Joshua Uche.
That's his request for his being called Joshua, and it's not Uche, it's Uche.
Uche, yeah. So he's former second round pick, I believe. Second round pick of the Patriots. A little bit of an undersized
Willie.
Yeah, well, exactly. A couple picks before Willie, which Charles Goldman very, very kindly alluded to before the game, because he was benched this past Sunday for the Patriots game in anticipation of a trade somewhere. But yeah, a little bit undersized, 6'1", 245. It doesn't fit the traditional, what we talk of a Spags defensive end. He was more of a 3-4 outside linebacker in New England. Had 11 and a half sacks in 2022 when he was still getting coached by Mr. Bill Belichick. So that's good. And he had a very prominent pass rusher on the other side of him, Matthew Judon. But extremely, extremely talented and athletic dude. He has I think the 5th highest pressure rate in the NFL the past few years. Very, very productive guy who's not really been on a great situation in New England, on a great defense. Now comes over to the Chiefs in exchange for a 2026 6th round pick. So if you're following along at home, that's basically nothing. That's basically absolutely nothing for a guy who has 1 year left on his deal. He'll be a free agent after the season, but Chiefs get a little bit of added pass rush help while we still wait on a Menahue and a couple guys to come back. Charles, like I alluded to, you were a little early on this. I know that the Chiefs did a lot of work on Uche in the draft process when he was coming out of Michigan. How do you like this move for the Chiefs, who are very much all in? They're going for it. They are not resting on anything. They're just making moves left, right, and center.
Yeah, I often know more than I let on. So if you ever see those little eyeball emojis from me on Twitter, it's probably me giving you guys a hint.
Into a couple conversations.
What I know about the Uche deal is this is a player that they've targeted, that they've liked for a long time. They met with him extensively, multiple times ahead of the 2020 NFL draft. Met with him at the Senior Bowl. They met with him, had a formal at the Combine, which is rare. Usually when you meet with a guy at the Senior Bowl, you don't go and turn around and have a formal with him and have the same amount of, spend more time with him at the Combine. But they liked him so much that they did that. Multiple virtual meetings, because that year was the COVID year, and they didn't have the in-house visits, the top 30 visits. So they had a lot of virtual meetings with him. He goes 3 picks before they're on the clock at pick number 63 in that draft. They end up taking Willie Gay Jr. there, who they're very, very pleased with his career and his tenure in Kansas City. I don't think they're displeased with that at all, but I do think that they had a role and an idea in mind that Uche could come in and could be kind of this hybrid off-ball pass rush specialist. I know that they envisioned him in that kind of a role. I also know that they kind of felt like, hey, this is a guy who could maybe, learn from like a Frank Clark, or, fit into that kind of mold for Kansas City as like a speed rusher, as a guy who can get after the quarterback. And, I think that the whole idea behind adding Uche to the pass rush group right now isn't necessarily about, hey, we need edge rush help right now. Like they could have probably got by with the guys that they had. But I think it's more about, okay, we just lost our number 2 cornerback. We're going to be playing a lot of young players in the secondary now who haven't played a lot of snaps, who they're going to have some growing pains. Like, they'll very well be in position, but maybe they don't make the play on the ball, right? So what do we need to do in order to account for that? We need to get to the quarterback faster. So adding a guy like Uche, a speed rusher, a guy who has that skill set to not only get after the quarterback quickly, rushing from outside, but he has the inside counter moves. He can do a lot of different things for you. He can rush with his hand in the dirt, but he can also align as like a stand-up 3-4 edge rusher. And now that you've learned, hey, we can do this with Leo Chenal too, I think you're going to see a lot more like 5-man fronts from Kansas City, where you've got guys like you got like a Big Mike as a true nose tackle, you got Chris Jones as a 3-4 end, you can switch out guys like Karlaftis or Omenihu, right? And be multiple with these fronts and show offensive lines different things. And look, if you can get home, with Russian 5, or having a guy like Chenal or Uche dropping into coverage, they've shown that Chenal has shown that he can do that. Uche is known that he can do that. So they have some different things that they can do with the defense now by adding him to the mix.
Man, Kyle, that sounds kind of
something
familiar.
I've been talking
it's almost
about.
Like there was. I feel like there's
years.
someone. Yeah, I feel like there was someone on this podcast who had really long hair who was talking about the Chiefs transitioning to a 3-4 defense this offseason. Perhaps
NASCAR package is an option with this
NASCAR.
defense.
Yeah.
You saw that. That's what it
They're
was.
Going left.
That's what it was termed and deemed when Spags used to run it with the Giants back in the day, and somewhat since then.
The Speedway's right there.
Man, I'm not typically super overjoyed with mid-season acquisitions because they're just to temper expectations kind of deal. This is different for me. He provides a dynamic, and Charles mentioned it. They didn't have to do this, but they wanted to do this. I don't know, and I'll ask Charles this question in a little bit about potentially maybe what else they might do, because I don't know that they're necessarily done yet, but we'll see. But my thing with Uche is this: they've now created the ability to, while they have a lot of similar guys on this defensive line, they didn't really have a speed rush guy. They didn't really have a beat you around the top of your tackle kind of guy. There's no Frank Clark on this roster, as you mentioned. There's no D Ford. Other people will freak out about that name, but
he was a good
other than the offsides, he could do that. He provides a different dynamic. His ability to, he almost looks like he's playing basketball at points when he's pass rushing, with the way he sets guys up with his feet without ever letting them getting their hands on him. He'll delay rush you and then absolutely torch you inside because you're set up to go outside, and he crosses over your face and all of a sudden he's gone. There's a couple of clips. Lane Johnson got absolutely undressed by him on a snap. He's made Josh Allen not enjoy his time, strip sacked. He got him twice in 2022 in his big sack season. But I think the thing that's most intriguing is, like we just talked about with the 5-man fronts and some of that stuff and the NASCAR packages. Here's a 5-man front for you. And I got to give DMAC credit. We were talking about this in the space, and then he tweeted it out. Uche, Karlaftis, Chris Jones, Charles Omenihu, Leo Chenal. Have fun with that 5.
Yeah.
Who's blocking that?
I don't know. I mean, there's a term that I could use, but I wouldn't say it on y'all's podcast. But my goodness, those guys are going to wreak some havoc. And it's also good that, like, this is a guy that, like, they had a plan for, right? This is a guy that, like, they envisioned him as coming in, being a 4-year player in their system. Like, anything they had in mind for him, now's the time, right? You got 9 games left, however many games left the regular season, postseason games, and he I think Bill Belichick said it today on ESPN. He hasn't been really, like, good the past 2 years, but the Patriots have been so bad. They're always playing from behind. They're never really giving him the opportunity to rush the passer. So I feel like he's instantly going to be the type that can come in and make an impact. I wouldn't be shocked if we see him, get sacks in several of these last games.
Well, his style, because what Chris and Tershawn and those guys in the middle do to the interior of that pocket, and what George does and Mike does, Dana, his former teammate at Michigan, off the other edge, the quarterbacks are going to be forced to they can't just drop back to like Patrick did where it's 13 yards deep anymore and hope and wait for the bull rush. Because if he's coming off the other side and he's going around the top, you now don't have that exit lane. It changes the structure of the pass rush. It changes where these quarterbacks can find the ability to go. He can also run guys down like Josh Allen if he beats your tackle around the top. He's also, while he's not been good, I'm going to read this from Matt McMullen, Chiefs team reporter. Now, it's PFF, so grain of salt, everybody, grain of salt. But he has a pass rush win rate of 17.2% this season. That's 14th amongst edges with more than 90 snaps. That's real good.
It's pretty good.
On a real bad team. Really and now he's not going to be asked to play every down and be a run stopper and do the other stuff that they were asking him to do on the edges, because they have guys like Felix, who's turned into a really good run defender on the edge. And several of your other George is really good at it. Mike Dana's really good at it. They've got a bunch of the other skill sets and a bunch of the other guys. They didn't have the true speed, bust your ass pass rusher. They do now.
Yeah, very excited for the addition of Uche. I think the different flavor is going to be nice to have back on the defense with all the different possibilities, and just using him as a blitzer, using him inside, outside, wherever you want to. It's going to be. I think Spags has a little bit of a type, and that type might be Michigan defensive end and linebackers, because he's gotten a couple of them now. Frank Clark, Dana. Now you have Uche. It's should be fun. Should be interesting to see how quickly they get him integrated into the game plan this upcoming week. Obviously, you have an extra day because we're on Monday Night Football now this week versus the Buccaneers. The question, Charles, and we mentioned the cornerback depth being a little thin now. You've lost Jalen Watson, and you're asking some guys to step into roles that haven't got a lot of action. You think the Chiefs are done? You think that that there any moves might potentially be made? Maybe an addition of a corner?
I think it's possible, but I would be surprised to see it. I think that, ideally you'd like to add like a veteran. Like, it'd be great to see like a Pat Peterson or something, like a vet who's out there who could give you like some games where he's not gonna like get just absolutely beat, right? Because some of these young guys that they're playing, like I said earlier, you're gonna have to live with the growing pains unless your pass rush gets home, right? But I think that there are some options out there that I think would make sense for the Chiefs, maybe as like, let's bring them in on the practice squad and let them compete and see if we could maybe elevate them and, see what they got. You got some former Chiefs out there. Rashad Fenton, this guy who's out there who's played some good snaps for this team. He's played for Spags before. There's another guy who's out there, Khalef Halasi, I think was released by the Browns a couple days ago.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a few guys who are out there who have played for this scheme, this defense before, who you could bring them in on the practice squad, kind of like they did with Darius Rush, right? And maybe that's a guy that you elevate, bring up at some point. I would be surprised. I think they're going to roll with the guys that they have unless there's another serious injury and they have no choice. I think they're kind of learning about our guy that we talked about, Christian Roland Wallace, a little bit in real time, and like what he can do. He's really only played nickel and safety for them right now, but like he can play outside corner. And I think they're going to get to the point where like let's try him there and see what he can do. I think that there's one that would be a lot of fun, I think, and just hilarious because of all the reunions and stuff that have happened this season. Marcus Peters, anybody? Marcus Peters. That'd be a lot of fun.
I've been saying that since the beginning of the season. Probably, I've been saying that for years.
That'd be a lot of
fun. I don't know if everybody in the building
no.
would think it's fun because
I'd bring him back instantly. I don't care.
I know you would, Garrett.
That's my favorite. One of my favorite players.
I don't think that happens, man. I really don't.
Yeah, there's a couple other names I saw in the rumor mill. Charvarius Ward was floated around as a potential guy, another former Chief. Who knows? Also,
that's
Tre'Davious
a lot of money
White.
to have to try to move around and do stuff with.
Yeah, Charv was a little bit more. Tre'Davious White was also requested or granted permission to seek a trade for the Rams. I think that'd be funny given his draft position and the history behind that. Obviously, the Bills trading back, giving us Patrick Mahomes, them taking them. That'd be kind of funny. But you're right. Marcus Peters makes so much more sense, Charles. Jeez, I don't know. I think of this before. Oh, my goodness.
I don't think they're going to be in the trade market anymore. I mean, they've already kind of proven that they're not going to play in the first, second, third round pick area right now. Those are off limits. Those are their building pieces. They're going to, handle, have some comp picks, have some couple late rounders, but not as many as they usually would, which is kind of a bummer because they do such a good job with those late round picks. But yeah, I think the pieces they're acquiring in the interim are probably more prudent than a couple stabs at the late rounds because you just never know.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say I think that it'd be probably a surprise at this point to see them trade for anyone else, especially a cornerback. I do think that they'll probably do their diligence on some of the guys who are out there in free agency, might see an addition on the practice squad.
Okay, because the reason that I was so curious about what they might continue to do was largely because of the amount of money they still have available now, that they did free up with that restructure, and Uche's contract is very tiny as far as what he's going to be paid this year. It's something like $700,000 or whatever with the prorations when it's done.
I want to say it was $1 million.
It was 1.3 to start the year on the base, and then they prorated and so on and so forth down for number of games and yada yada. So he isn't expensive by any stretch of the imagination, and also the pick being a 2026 conditional or 2026 sixth rounder. With Uche being if he's a free agent this year and they don't sign him themselves and he signs somewhere else, he could be comp pick eligible for a 7th in that same draft. So at that point, they would have just moved a 6th for a 7th and got a year out of a player if they don't sign him long term. What other, they could still, I know that there's been plenty of injuries at receiver, and yes, they're expecting Hollywood back now, it sounds like, more so than I think any of us really thought might be possible when it first happened after the surgery took place. Is there any other position besides that they might look at adding through that trade market?
I really don't think so.
The extra money? Okay.
Yeah, I really don't think so. I think trades at this point, I think this is probably the last move you're going to see from trades. I do think, they have that money available as a contingency because we're at week 9, fellas. Mm-hmm. And we've already had a ton of injuries. They need that contingency in case they find themselves in a situation where they have to go out and they have to sign a player because they have a big injury. And unfortunately, the reality of it is the way the injuries have been going this season, it's almost a guarantee that someone else is going to get hurt.
Yeah, probably good to hold on a little bit of salary. You never know what other random guy might become available on the free agent market. I know Terrell Suggs was a free agent acquisition, I believe. He got released by the Cardinals, I think it was.
It was a waiver claim, wasn't he?
Yeah, because if you get released after the trade deadline, even as a veteran,
waiver claim,
you get put on waivers. So that's another possibility, right? We could see some disgruntled players who don't get traded at the deadline, and the teams do them a solid and release them and put them on waivers. That's certainly a possibility, something to consider. But
probably just sticking with our guys, though. Yeah.
I think for now, I think they're feeling pretty good after these 2 acquisitions, DeAndre Hopkins and Josh Uche.
Yeah. And Uche definitely helps the back end and the coverage and whatnot. And it was very interesting that they were rolling out Najee Johnson as the cornerback too, and then like Charles alluded to, Christian Roland Wallace was the nickel cornerback. He was like the main nickel guy. So hopefully Najee and his concussion, he'll be able to make it back very soon. Otherwise, we might see more of Christian Roland Wallace out there. Joshua Williams didn't have the greatest of games, but he was also kind of coming in cold, so it's always tough. But and also they elevated Keith Taylor, so they still have him as an option. They've got a couple other guys on the practice squad they could always potentially call up. I think even like Kelvin Joseph is still on another team's practice squad they could always sign off of or whatnot. There's still some possibilities, but for what it looks like right now, I think the Chiefs are in a pretty good spot. So with that being said, I think we've pretty much covered it all as far as the Raiders game and movement and all that stuff. Charles, so good to have you on as always. You've basically become our reporter for the Kingdom Says. You're our main source of news almost all the time. So we appreciate you coming on. If you could tell everyone where they could find you and all of your awesome content over there.
And anything new you got coming out or going on.
Nothing too crazy as far as anything new coming up, but you can always find me at GoldMCTNFL on X. And you can find my writing over at AtoZsports.com/NFL/Kansas City Chiefs News. Oh my God, it's kind of hard to. We're working on the abbreviated hyperlink.
I was gonna say a little bit of a mouthful on that URL.
Right. Yeah, there's some dashes in between those two. So. Hey, and I'm looking over here. Denver Nuggets win by 2 points. Woo!
Hey,
okay. That's one of the many sports things going on tonight.
First win of the season for my Nuggets.
Yeah, wow. If you guys aren't aware, there's a sports equinox going on right now on a Monday in the middle of October. We've got World Series baseball, you've got NBA basketball, you've got basically a full slate of the NHL, and then you've got Steelers and Giants taking place.
One of the best sports days of the year, in my opinion.
I do want to quickly, before we get out of here, I want to say congratulations to our winner of our giveaway. This is going to be sent to you very shortly. That was something we finished. I think that ended. What day was that?
Saturday.
Saturday. Got that picked out. Thank you again, Corey, artist chief, for this. Everything has been going quite smoothly around here now with these wins and with all these nice little additions. The injury bug, not great, but everything else has been going smooth, and we appreciate everything that you do on as far as the news reporting. And yeah, when Charles tweets eyeballs, guys, pay attention.
I say if you're not following Charles, you better follow him because he has the best reporting of literally everything that the Chiefs do, and then you get little tidbits like potentially a Josh Uche trade. So yeah, one of the best follows on Twitter. We can't thank him enough for always coming on, and we thank everyone for listening and watching us on this episode. Be sure to check us out on YouTube if you're listening on Apple Music or Spotify. And if you're watching us on YouTube, check us out on Apple Music or Spotify. It's great. You might as well just double dip right there. Leave us a like and a rating and subscribe to the YouTube and all that good stuff. Be sure to follow us at Kingdom Says Pod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We will be back this Friday, probably. We'll probably be back this Friday for another live edition of the podcast. We've been doing that the past few Fridays now, and those have been working out pretty well. So I think we're going to keep on doing that.
You guys seem to like them, so we're going to keep doing it until you guys tell us you don't like them.
The live Fridays. So Tom will probably end up being back for that. We will have a different bearded man. Oh, also, Charles, we forgot to mention that Tom
is getting ready to say it.
To tell you that you have a beautiful beard, and we cannot agree more. Yeah.
And he hates missing when you're on, but he had to let you know that.
It's okay. I need to trim it up. It's a little wild right now, but it's about to get cold here in Colorado, gentlemen.
Yes.
So gotta get my polar bear on.
I'm surprised it's not cold already. As somebody who lived in that state for about 5 years, it usually is pretty chilly or gets chilly at least at night by now. So,
well, before we go, we can tell people about this phenomenon. You probably know about it, but when it gets cold in Colorado, right before it gets cold, the wind usually blows in from the north, and that's where all of the farm country is. So it starts to smell like shit outside. So it was a little stinky. I went out to get some dinner before, and it was a little stinky. And I'll tell you what, that means it's going to be cold.
That's why. I saw people talking about that on Twitter.
It's going to be cold.
I didn't know about that.
Yeah, that's a front range problem traditionally because it comes right down and hits the Rocky Mountains right on the front range through that line in Colorado, and it just kind of slides down that range and into the western Kansas where all that came from anyway. The other rest of it. So,
Wow,
yeah,
that is a fun fact I did not know of. But thank you so much for bestowing that honor and knowledge upon us, Charles, as you always do, man. He's a wealth of knowledge, whatever you look. So, yeah. So that's it. That's all we've got for you tonight. Thank you all for tuning in and watching, and we will see you guys on the next episode of The Kingdom Says.